When we're in the trenches of life, dealing with real issues of justice, there seems to be no need or the time to invoke anything divine, let alone Jesus, a man from the first century. Some of us might be passionate about climate justice and petitioning for the lives and futures of a generation that increasingly looks like it will have no choice but to commit to sustainable ways of living. Or we might be in the fight for racial justice, working hard to ensure that no one is disadvantaged because of their ethnic or racial background. It's clear that justice is high on our agenda, whatever our cause, and wherever we land on political and social matters. We've made huge strides in human rights legislation, and in many instances, we're coming together like never before to campaign for the fair treatment of everyone. Justice is a priority, especially as the world changes so rapidly and we find ourselves adjusting from post-pandemic life, political crises, rising cost of living, and sadly, even war. What's more, Christians don't have a monopoly on justice. My own faults and failures as a professing Christian attest to this. Surely the Crusades are testament to the church's failed attempt to be a beacon of goodness. And what about the church's complicity in the transatlantic slave trade? Where was the sense of justice then? It appears that our secular culture seems to be doing all right in matters of justice without the need for God or the one who claimed to be his son, Jesus. So if Christianity can't be trusted to deal with the problems of injustice, then we should look elsewhere. Now let's consider two people who have some thoughts about the question, why do we care about justice? On the surface, these two people appear to have similar ideas, but ultimately they have very different worldviews. Here's the first one. There's nothing intrinsically special about us in a universe that is blindly obeying the laws of nature. There's no reason why humans should have any more claim for special regard on the biological tree of life than a louse. And here's the second one. Homo sapiens has no natural rights, just as spiders, hyenas, and chimpanzees have no natural rights. Both of these positions argue that if our existence is the outworking of impersonal cosmic forces, and if we are nothing more than biochemical machines, then we shouldn't believe that as humans, we have any special value. If we suffer injustice, then that's just the way the cosmic cookie has crumbled. But as I mentioned, interestingly, the people behind these two very similar views have completely different worldviews. The first person is Justin Briley, who is a Christian and former host on the popular Christian media platform Premiere Unbelievable. The second is historian Yuval Harari, an atheist academic and author. In his famous book, Sapiens, Harari explains that ideas of hierarchy, discrimination, and justice are invented by us as humans as we group together and organize ourselves for survival around shared beliefs and myths. Now, if this is true, there is something a little disturbing about this, and we should be worried. You see, if justice is dependent upon our shared ideas about human value and what's best for human flourishing, what happens when these ideas aren't shared at all, or when every culture, group, and nation have their own persuasions about justice? As the record of history shows in the Holocaust, the transatlantic slave trade, and deaths upon deaths in, say, Stalinist Russia, when humans gather around an idea of whose face fits and who belongs, we can witness horrors in history. And neither of these views tell us why something happens when we look on the news, social media, and in our day-to-day lives and see people suffering. When we see injustices, something in us is moved. But why is this the case? Is our activism predetermined by the whims of a mindless universe? Is our longing for justice just an illusion and evolutionary instinct for the survival of our tribe? Are we simply virtue signaling because we want to be seen as good people? I think you'll agree with me that these conclusions are just too cynical. Many of us genuinely care about the suffering of others. We make an autonomous choice to speak up and out for marginalized voices. In conversations with African American men who rightly take issue with Christianity due to its complicity with the transatlantic slave trade, A speaker called Adam Coleman raises a thought-provoking challenge. If everything came from nothing, and the universe springs into existence from nothing by nothing, then nothingness has no intentions. It can't confer value on anybody or anything. Coleman's point is that in a universe without God, the workings of mindless cosmic forces could not give any of us inherent dignity. If this is the case, as we emerge from the primordial soup and evolve into complex creatures, we have to decide human value for ourselves. And herein lies our dilemma. These so-called shared decisions about justice don't always mean the flourishing of everyone. It can actually result in prejudice of all kinds. When we say that's not fair, that's an injustice, or they shouldn't be able to get away with that, we are appealing to an objective standard of morality because we believe that others should agree with us. They should see that our cry for justice is legitimate. In his short book, Where is God in a Coronavirus World, John Lennox explains this idea further. He writes, justifiable outrage against natural or moral evil presupposes a standard of good that is objectively real and independent of us, so that we expect others to agree with us in condemning certain things. These standards are transcendent. That is, they exist above the level of individual opinions. Lennox is saying that when we petition, picket and protest against injustice, we do so because we believe it to be self-evident that there are some things that are objectively just and unjust for all peoples across all times and places. So whilst it is true, for example, that the enslavement of Africans was legally allowed in the past, even at that time when it was enshrined in law, it was objectively and morally wrong. The enslavement of Africans in the past is just as unjust as the horrors of modern day slavery now. Unlike Harari, Brierley believes that our story is different. He believes that human dignity comes from God, and this in turn makes sense of why we rightly care so much about justice. Could it be that our very yearnings to see the world become a better place actually point us to someone, not merely something, better? In other words, to a person, capital P, rather than an abstract brute fact. If justice seems to be closely linked to our ideas about how we treat each other, it would not be unreasonable to look to someone outside of ourselves to ground this intuition. As philosopher Robert Adams argues, the majesty of moral requirement is much better sustained by a source in a transcendent good than in any human society. Let's explore this for a moment. I was scrolling through Instagram a while back and I saw a celebrity who had posted a video condemning an injustice. I'm paraphrasing, but in the video they said, if you have the power to help people and stop injustice and you don't, you no longer have the right to be called a good person. Now, at first glance, many of us would agree with this statement. It's a very strong view which demands a high standard of integrity. But as I listened to the celebrity's impassioned speech, some questions arose for me. Can we meet this standard all the time? Is that celebrity sure that they are doing all they can to fight injustice? How do they know that someone won't scroll through the archives of their socials or career and find an example of them not doing everything within their power to help others? Are they suddenly and forevermore not a good person? Is there no hope for a second chance if and when we mess up? Of course, our human condition makes this inevitable. The author Alexander Solzhenitsyn makes our predicament clear in the Gulag Archipelago. In his eye-opening book, he describes the terror and brutality prisoners faced in Soviet Russia. Reflecting upon the human condition, he wrote, "The line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart?" This leads to an even bigger problem. What do we do when we're so vocal about what others deserve until the accusatory finger of justice is pointing at us? Suddenly, we desire the benefit of the doubt, a second chance, mercy. If we're honest, perhaps we wouldn't survive our own standards of justice. We are ready to lower the gavel of our own metric of morality upon others, but not when we ourselves are in the dock. This is our predicament. This is the tension in which we live, a desire in our hearts for justice and the secret knowing that we don't always get it right. These words of poetry from the Hebrew Bible illustrate this issue. Justice is far from us, and righteousness does not reach us. We look for light, but all is darkness, for brightness, but we walk in deep shadows. Like the blind, we grope along the wall, feeling our way like people without eyes. Our longing for justice is good, a legitimate desire, and yet it indicts us even as we grope for it in the dark. We can't attain the very standard we seek. The good news of Christianity is that there is someone who can help us with our dilemma. The Christian message leads us to look at a person, not the abstract principle of justice. Because matters of suffering and justice are so intimately linked and tied to human beings, justice itself demands the judgment of a person, not empty premises or propositions. It points us to a person within whom all justice resides, God in the person of Jesus. Hope for justice looks like Jesus. Human dignity and the belief that we should be treated justly is not a movable, changeable, shared or unshared set of human ideas. It comes from a God who has made us in his image. Genesis 1:27 tells us that God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. This means that our dignity as humans comes from the fact that we reflect something of God himself. Our present-day pursuit of justice is a good and worthwhile desire. However, it makes the clearest sense in a world where our dignity as human beings is grounded in a personal God who has endowed us with inestimable worth.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's me, Tom Cousins. Here's the OCCA studio. I'm actually part of an organisation called OCCA, the Oxford Centre for Christian Apologetics. We make films about the big questions of life and how the Christian message has valuable, we think, answers to those questions. If you enjoyed this film, please check out the other stuff on our channel and also consider liking and subscribing. It helps us make more stuff like this. Also, we want to hear your thoughts. If you've got any ideas for future content, please drop us a message in the comments or send us a direct email. Thanks go out to all the people that made this possible, including the lovely people behind me. Here's a fun fact for you. It takes about 60 hours to make each one of these films, and it's all made by our in-house OCCA staff who are funded by donations. So if you do have the means and you feel like it, please do donate. On our website, we've got a helpful button labeled donate, very easy to press. All right, God bless you guys. Bye.